Page 160, Thursday, October 5th. Joey didn't come to school today. I wasn't surprised. I know exactly where he was. He was in the office at Lake Windsor Middle School re-enrolling. It's the right thing for him to do. It's the right place for him to be. I never should have talked Joey into coming to Tangerine. He doesn't fit in here. I should have seen that. Joey's not me. Joey fits in with his family. He fits in with his friends. He fits in with Lake Windsor Downs. That's where he belongs. That's where he is now. And that's all there is to say about it. Right before class began, I went up to Teresa and handed her 6 pages of research. She seemed pleasantly surprised. I said, "So, what's up with Tino?" She said, "Not much," and started to look at my papers. "Does the coach know that he got suspended?" "Yeah, I guess so. Everybody else knows." "Is he going to miss tomorrow's game?" "No, he's coming back tomorrow." "Yeah, I heard he got 3 days." Louise went in and talked to Johnson. She said that since Tina didn't actually hit anybody, she'd reduce his time out to 1 day. Oh, that's cool. Teresa stopped thumbing through my report. She looked me right in the eye like she never had before. Yeah, look, Paul Fisher, you gotta understand one thing. You can't come in here and start talking about Louise any way that you like. Louise means too much to us. I nodded quickly. Yeah, I understand. Tino and Victor, they don't play that kind of stuff. I told them last night that they should leave you alone. But you better tell your friend to keep out of their way. I thought about that. I don't think he goes to school here anymore, and I don't think he counts me as his friends. Not anymore. Well, I don't know anything about that. I'm just telling you what I'm telling you. She pulled a piece of white paper out of her back pocket. Here, this is a map to our house. Henry's coming over after practice to meet Louise. If you want to meet him, you can come too. I stared at the map and at the large black X marking their house. As coolly as I could, I said, "So, what about Tino?" "What do you mean?" "He won't be mad if I come?" "No, why should he be?" I shrugged. "You know, the stuff with Joey." "You're not Joey, are you?" "No, but is he mad about getting suspended?" "You're not the one who got him suspended, are you?" I shook my head and said, "No." But I thought to myself, not this time anyway. I went over to talk to Henry D., and we wound up working on a great plan. Henry's brother was going to drive him from Tangerine Middle School to Teresa's house, come back to get him, and then drive over to Lake Windsor Downs to do a job. Henry said that he and his brother would be pleased to drop me off right at my door. I called Mom and explained the plan. She sounded doubtful, but she agreed to let me do it. At practice, the coach put me in at Tino's position. I played poorly, but nobody seemed to care. It was just temporary. Tino would be back tomorrow. After practice, I followed Henry D. to the parking lot. We walked up to a small blue pickup truck and climbed in. Henry said, "This is Paul. This is my brother Wayne." Wayne Dilks, I knew him right away, the fireman, the young guy who had come to our house about the muck fire. He gave me a friendly hi, but I don't think he recognized me. Anyway, he didn't say anything as we drove east toward the groves, listening to a country music station. Soon we were flying past perfect rows of citrus trees, and that glorious scent was in the air. I saw a large wooden sign that said Thomas Cruz Groves/Nursery. Wayne slowed to 5 miles per hour and turned right onto a dirt road. We bumped along past an oblong pond, 50 yards right, 50 yards across, ringed all around with tall cattails. Behind the pond on higher ground was a grove of trees, hundreds of them, all about 10 feet high and 6 feet wide. Water sprinklers rose to the left. Water sprinklers rose tall among the green trees like skinny metal weeds. We bumped to the left toward several buildings, a house, a separate garage, a small shed, and another strange-looking building. The house was large, 2 stories high, with old shade trees around it. It appeared to be built of cement blocks covered with a kind of mustard-colored stucco. We rolled in a cloud of dust past the house, pulled up next to the classic green Ford, and climbed down in front of that other building. Wayne said, "I'll see y'all in an hour," and backed out, leaving us standing there before one of the strangest structures I've ever seen. It looked like a gigantic tin can that had been cut in half, lengthwise, and then pressed down into the ground. I asked Henry, "What is this thing?" "It's a Quonset hut. They had a lot of them left over after World War II. Some of the citrus farmers bought them up cheap, as war surplus. Yeah? Did you find that out in your research? Yes, I did. Henry knocked on the wooden door of the hut. I looked up and figured that the door was 6 feet tall and the hut was 12 feet tall at its highest point. At its lowest points, the ends stuck right into the ground. Tino opened the door and said, Yo, Henry D. Then he turned back inside without acknowledging me. I followed Henry and Tino to the far end of the Quonset hut, about 20 yards down through the cool, dark, windowless building. The sides where the metal ceiling curved down to the cement floor were jammed with wooden crates, sprinkler heads, wheelbarrows, and all kinds of equipment. We joined Therese and Louise at the rear door. Teresa pointed at us and said to him, That one's Henry D. That other one's Paul Fisher. Louise smiled. He had large teeth inside a large head. He had a strange shape, too, bony and muscular at the same time. His arms, his legs, his whole body were like thick rope. Louise said, Good to see you guys. His voice was soft and seemed accented more than Tino's or Teresa's. He walked ahead of us, limping as if his left knee would not bend. He led us out of the Quonset hut toward the weather-beaten trees on a hill north of the house. Louise stopped about 5 rows in, pointed around him, and said, This is a grove. We grow a fruit here called the Cleopatra Tangerine, and we sell it to the citrus packers and juice companies. Our family has done that for 45 years now. Louise doubled back, and we followed. We turned left at the hut, and soon came to an open space as long as a soccer field, but square in shape. Here the trees were like babies, only a foot and a half high, and spaced not much more than a foot apart. There must have been 1,000 of them. Louise sat down next to one of the baby trees, so we all copied him. He said, Look around you, this is a nursery. The purpose of a nursery is not to grow fruit, it's to grow trees. We then sell these trees to fruit growers. Louise placed a long finger at the base of the baby tree. This part of the tree is called the rootstock. It is the root and the trunk of a rough lemon tree. Believe it or not, every type of tree that we produce here begins its life as a rough lemon tree. His finger rose 6 inches to the knobby beginning of the branch. At this point, we cut a slit into the rough lemon tree, set a new type of bud inside, and closed the slit up with tape. Now we have turned the tree into something else, perhaps a Valencia orange tree or a red ruby grapefruit tree. The new bud that we grafted onto the rootstock is called a scion. The word scion means like a child or a descendant of the tree. Louise pointed his arm back to the tall trees. Check this out. A scion can be any kind of citrus that you want. Orange, grapefruit, lemon, lime, and they can all be growing on the same tree at the same time. That means that on one little tree, you could have a branch of white grapefruit, a branch of red kumquats, and a branch of green limes, like some kind of Frankenstein fruit tree, all stitched together. He caressed the trunk of the baby tree. The rough lemon is totally worthless in the supermarket, and yet there is no more valuable tree out here in the nursery. Louise got to his feet, flushed with feeling. He pointed to the 1,000 baby trees before us. If you look out here, you'll see that all of these trees are the same. On each, there is one scion grafted onto a rough lemon rootstock. That scion is a new type of tangerine called the Golden Dawn. Louise stared with us at the field that he had created. Then he turned and led us back through the rows of adult trees. He pointed out different types of citrus trees, including some Frankenstein experiments of his own. He answered many questions for our report. All too quickly, we were back at the Quonset hut. Henry D. looked out the door and announced, Wayne's waiting. I walked up to Louise and offered my hands to shake. He took it in a powerful rope-like grip. I said, Thank you, I'm really interested in this stuff. He answered, Then you should come again. I said, I'd definitely like to. I turned toward Teresa and Tino. See you guys later. Teresa waved. Tino acted like he didn't hear. I followed Henry D. through the door, and then stopped short. There, attached to the back of Wayne's pickup truck, was a short trailer. It had a fat, heavy generator mounted on it, with a large fan and a spray nozzle on either side. I said, What on earth's that? Wayne answered cheerfully, It's a sprayer for y'all's mosquitoes. We bumped along with the sprayer behind us, all the way to Lake Windsor Downs. As soon as we turned into the entrance, Wayne spotted the blue tents along Joey Street. Look at that now, he said. Y'all are having a regular 10 plagues of Egypt over here, aren't you? Yeah, I said, 10 and counting. How many houses got termites? It looks like that whole street has them all along the west side. Then that's where they buried the citrus trees, he said. This was a grove, you know. Yeah, so I've heard. It was all groves around here. When they cleared this land for houses, they just set fire to all the trees and plowed them under. See how that whole Blue Tent Street scene seems to be on a hill? Yeah, that hill's made of dead trees, dead tangerine trees. Termites live on all that wood under the grounds, but they gotta come up to the surface to get water. That's where your problems start. If the wood in your house is in their way, they start eating that. I said, you can stop him though, right? You can kill him? You can call the Orkin army or something. Wayne shook his head. You can't stop him. You can't put a barrier around your house. That's about it. But you can't stop him from eating wood any more than you can stop that muck fire from burning or them mosquitoes from sucking blood. We were at the house. I said, here it is. I got out and looked at the spraying rig. You guys can turn this thing on now? Wayne smiled. Yeah, we're gonna let her rip. Kill some of them mosquitoes for you anyway. I said, thanks for the ride, Wayne. See you, Henry. Wayne waved. He reached under his seat and handed something to Henry. Then, in the same motion, they both pulled black rubber gas masks on over their faces. They sat there for a minute looking like a pair of ant-men who had stolen a truck. Then Wayne got out, walked back, and pulled the starter cord on the generator. I watched as the rig coughed and sputtered to life. Then I backed away and hurried inside. I dropped my stuff in the alcove and went into the kitchen for a drink. Out of the corner of my eye, I detected two people in motion, and I heard the poof, poof, poof sound. I knew that Eric and Arthur were practicing in the back. Would they stop when they smelled the insecticide? I got a soda and stood at the breakfast bar, waiting to see what they would do. I saw a billowing white cloud enter the backyard like an angel of death. It came from the right to the left in white waves and quickly filled up the whole yard. But as I watched the scene, it happened again. Just like in Houston, just like at the gray wall, a feeling came over me, overpowering me, like I had to remember something, whether I wanted to or not. I stared hard into the backyard. First, I could see Eric and Arthur. Then I couldn't see them. Then I could see them. Then I couldn't. And I remembered our backyard in Huntsville. Mom and Dad were standing in front of me. Dad was directing Eric to move in a circle around and behind me. Dad was saying, okay, Eric, pretend that Paul is in the center of an imaginary clock and that I am standing here at the 6 o'clock position. I want you to stand at the 12 o'clock position right behind him. Good. Now move to the 11 o'clock position. Then he said to me, Paul, can you see Eric? I said, no, I can't see him. Okay, Eric, move to 10 o'clock. Paul, can you see him? No, I can't see him. Move to 9 o'clock. I can't see him. I can't see him. Mom broke in. It's okay, honey. It's okay, she said to Dad. There. I told you. The problem is with his peripheral vision. Suddenly I felt the hot breath of a predator on my neck. I screamed in terror. Eric laughed and ran over to Mom and Dad. He had snuck up on me from behind, from somewhere back around 10 o'clock. Dad snapped at him. Eric, cut that out. You here to help us or not? I remember that I started to cry in the middle of that pretend clock, but Mom and Dad did not notice. They were arguing about my eyes or about my glasses. Mom finally said, well, it won't hurt to try, will it? Taking him back there tomorrow to see what they can do. And she did. That was when I got my new glasses. That was when I started to see better. From that day on, I could see things that they could not. I could see Eric posing in front of them in the shining light of the football dream, and I could see Eric lurking behind me in the shadows of the clock.